teach you all those high-end magic tricks yet, because unless you understand about the basics and the foundation, none of those are going to mean a whole lot. And on top of that, you're not going to have the perspective to understand how to move forward as Google changes the rules on you. And you're going to find, hopefully I'm going to help you discover, that there is a lot of stuff down there that is impervious to what Google's doing, because they've always been important and they still are important. And if you're doing those things, that becomes the foundation of your SEO. That is immune to all this back and forth going on up at the surface. And that doesn't mean you don't do those things, it just means that you keep your foundation strong. You know, you can weather the storm if your house is built on concrete and built on a solid foundation, and that's what we're going to talk about today, is that solid foundation. And we'll find the right button here.
Probably would like me to turn off my phone.
No.
Yeah, all phaser zones done, please.
I think what happened is I left this on and my battery died. I think is what happened. Oh well, it's okay. Okay, what is SEO? Basically, SEO is search engine optimization. It originally started way back in the beginning as simply a way to make your website more friendly to the bots. That was kind of the 10-year ago point of view of SEO. And so you want to optimize your website for search engines. That's really what it boiled down to. Now, it can mean a whole bunch of other things, but we're going to look at the foundation of that. And that foundation has to do with site navigation, unique page titles, content tags so that your content makes sense in terms of being indexed. You know, there's an H1 tag and H2, and everything's in kind of order. Not a whole string of H1 tags or a whole string of H2 tags that you use strictly for design purposes. It's got to make some sense. In other words, you're telling Google what your content structure is. So, keyword lists that relate to your content for that page. Keywords really critical, never will stop being critical. Page descriptions, those are used by Google to put, you know, when they list you, that page description is going to be there, and that's what's going to attract people to click on you in the search engines. And a whole bunch of more things. So SEO is about the foundations. This is called on-site SEO now. Then there's off-site SEO, which has to do with backlinks. SEO used to mean just on-site SEO. So anyway, it's gotten complicated. So our goals for today. We're going to understand kind of where search engines come from. We're really going to focus on what Panda is, because that's really what's happening right now. We're going to look at on-site foundations of SEO, which I just talked a little bit about. We're going to talk about expectations of doing SEO activities. What can you expect when you do this stuff? Okay? And if you have the right expectations, you won't be so easily disappointed or lead yourself down the garden path thinking wonderful things are going to happen and they don't. Or know where to put your emphasis. And then we're going to touch at the end on kind of SEO scams. One of my favorite topics too is, you know, because SEO has become such a big thing in all of the webdom, there's always people out there that are going to take advantage of people. And so we're going to talk about how you can determine who is more legitimate than other people in terms of what they're going to deliver. Because at some point in your business, you may need to hire somebody. Matter of fact, if you hopefully get to that point where you can hire somebody, because SEO is extremely time-consuming, and you want to attend to your business, not to this, if you can help it. I mean, you want to get started, you want to be educated, otherwise you're not going to be a good consumer of SEO services. But you want to get to a point where that you're hiring somebody. That's really where you want to get, because to do it successfully, you need help. Time-wise, you need help. Okay? It's a very time-consuming process. Okay, warning labels. Ignorance is not bliss, which is why you're here. Hopefully you'll walk away a little less ignorant. A lot less ignorant. SEO is an activity, not a thing. That's got back to what I said at the beginning. It takes time. It's an activity. It's a thing you do. It's not a thing you put on your website and walk away and for never ever to look at it again. I mean, there are some things you do, but really, to keep it going. It's an activity. SEO is a competition against others. Because really the result of SEO is getting you higher on the search rankings, and that's the goal, so that you'll be found sooner, and so that people come to you. I mean, that's why you're doing this. If you're doing it for some other reason, whoops, you're on the wrong boat. You're doing it to get on page 1, top of the page if you're really lucky, so that you'll get clicked a lot. That's why you're doing this. So it's a competition. It's kind of a war. SEO is not instant. It's a long-term process that goes on and on forever. You are never done doing it. You're never finished. You just get a little more efficient at it. Those sorts of things, which is why you someday want to hire somebody if you can't afford it. But it never stops. And there are times when you just can't get to it, and then somewhere along the line you suffer the penalties of not getting to it. Your business does, especially if your business depends a lot on the web. Which it may not. You may have a business that just lives well on its own but could use a little extra boost from the web. And so you can ignore it a little bit and not feel the penalty until somewhere along the line you discover that you're just not getting the traffic you would like from the website. I have one client who I talked to the other day, a long-term client's been with us forever. He said, I don't get anything from my web. And I said, you know why? And he's into exercise. He's a coach. I said, it's because your website's a couch potato. He goes, what? I says, yeah, you're ignoring it. What do you expect? You have the website that we built for you 10 years ago. Do you think that's going to be relevant today? No. You got to put some time into it. You got to do it, or you hire us to do it, whatever. Hire somebody to do it, but you got to do something, otherwise you get nothing out of it. And he goes, oh, I didn't want to hear that. So, okay. Originally, most of what we're going to talk about is what's called organic SEO or natural SEO. It has to do with on-page SEO is another word for the same thing. And it's where you naturally fall as a result of just being a good website and doing the basics. That's kind of the natural place where you fall. And it's based solely on indexing and the algorithms that have to do with indexing your real content, measuring value to others, measuring quality of content, trusted authorities, and whether other people are clicking you and using you. Yes?
Can you give a basic definition of what an algorithm is? I don't know.
It's a formula. It's a formula where they look at different components of your website and traffic and stuff, and they give those components a weight in the formula. Like this is times 2, and this is times 1, and that's times 6. And they put that together and they come up with a number, and that number puts you at a certain point on the
So
page.
when they're talking about you will change the algorithm again, it's like they change this value from 1 to 6, so it's real important.
Or they threw that whole thing out and put a whole new piece into that formula, right?
Okay, that's the idea. So basically it's a formula that nobody knows exactly what it is.
Exactly. That's a key point. Nobody knows exactly what it is. Now, there are a lot of people that guess based on the things they do. They say, well, I did this and I did that and that happened, so I can guess that this is what Google's doing. Now, Google does kind of tell us what they want. Now, how they turn that into their algorithm, we don't know. In other words, between telling us what they want to see from websites and how they actually rank it, those two can be not necessarily easy to connect in your mind. How do you take this and turn it into a formula?
Okay. The reason they're keeping it private is because if people knew exactly how they do it, they could find a way to get around it, maybe.
Yeah, they do.
More
and
out, too.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
You can fool the algorithm.
Pardon?
You can fool the algorithm.
Well, you
Especially
fool it,
if you
or
know
you
what it
leverage
is.
it, or you take advantage of it in
You might put
unnatural
things that
ways.
aren't even real
Right.
in there just to get the
Exactly.
algorithm to work for you,
Right.
and so they're trying to keep that from happening as well.
It is
correct?
happening, and that's why Panda came along.
Okay.
See, people were taking their old algorithms and leveraging them in such a way that it had nothing to do with Google's original intent. And the original intent had to do with measure value to others. Measure quality of content. This is what Google was trying to do all along, and still are. But they found that people were subverting that by the things they were doing. They were creating bogus backlinks and bogus this and bogus that, and pumping in a lot of connections to trusted authorities to make themselves look more important, and therefore forcing themselves up higher in the ranking when they really didn't have true value to others. The thing that they wanted wasn't there. And so that's Panda basically threw their whole algorithm kind of, not out the door, but put it in the back room. They didn't throw it out the door, but they put it in the back room and they said, okay, let's start all over again. And we're going to still use that, but it's, matter of fact, I just got through reading an article that basically was from Matt Cutts. He's kind of big in Google, you know, he's in charge of a lot of this stuff. And he basically said that they really don't put much emphasis on PageRank anymore. Much emphasis, which means they haven't thrown it away. But they're trying to create something new that kind of does more of what they really, their goals have not changed, basically. It's just that they found that they were being taken advantage of a little too easily and a little too well. So now they're trying to, it's kind of like an arms race between them and everybody else. Okay, let's start from the very beginning. SEO and web standards. One of the very most foundations of your website is helping search engines index your content. That's what you're selling, is your content, and that's what Google wants to index. So do things that help them do that really well. Like structure your content, no superfluous tags or styles buried in there, nice, clean, HTML code, you know, really well done so that Google can zip through your code and index your content and move right on. So that's a good foundation. Make sure your page titles and descriptions are unique for that page. You shouldn't have the same page title and description for every page on your website. Each page is unique and should have its own description, its own title, and it should have its own set of keywords. Now there's obviously some keywords are going to be duplicated, but you need to think of each page as a unique landing place that somebody wants to come to, that somebody may find in the indexing and click to. Okay, so every page has to have something unique about it. And, oh yes.
Is there a page, word count on content?
No? I think that I was reading one article late last night, like 11:30 or so. This one website was talking about their trials and tribulations of trying to, I mean, when Panda came out, they went to the ceiling. Not ceiling, the floor, the attic, the basement. They just disappeared off the rankings, and they were like number 1 and 2 before that. And Panda hit, they just went, boom, gone. And they were in the business of publishing content. And so they're going, what happened? So they went back and they found one of the things is that like 3/4 of their content was little comments. Oh, this is awesome. Oh, that's great. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And they found that this is what was really killing them. One of the things that was really killing them. So they started filtering all that out and making sure that the real content was what was being emphasized on their webpage, not all this sort of spammy, posty stuff. So in that case, you know, the emphasis was on the real content and just making sure that your content really does address what the link and the title say it does. So what does that mean in terms of page link? It means when somebody goes there, do they really get what they were after? Or did you wander off somewhere else? Maybe that should be on another page with its own link. Maybe you need to break it up so that each one of those is separately searchable, so that you have to look at your content that way.
So in other words, that article you had read was they were ranking based largely on comments. Okay, they got filtered out. Okay, great. As it should be.
Yeah, as it should be, absolutely. They admit that they were taking advantage of something that the old algorithm boosted them up for, and Google had said, no, we don't want that. We don't want pages of comments with little tiny snippets of content.
So if they had had the content on there, they probably would have, given other factors, but
Right.
they could have stayed on the page.
They would have stayed better, right?
Yes.
Right. If they would have de-emphasized the comments, filtered the comments to some of those that were meaningfully discussing the content on the page, which meant they were like paragraphs instead of one-word sentences, like awesome, wonderful, isn't this great, here's my link back to my website, which is what was happening.
Will you get into comment spam for WordPress sites? How you deal
Not
with that?
specifically, but I'll let you talk about it if you want.
No? I was curious how you deal with it, John.
I personally feel that, I heavily filter comments. Unless something really directly adds to the article, it's out of here. I just don't accept any, oh, that's wonderful. Oh, that's really I like that. No. That doesn't add to when I go to a website and I want to read the comments, I want to read what other information is going to help me with what I read in that article. And that's what I'm looking for as a user, so that's what I try to provide.
It's the difference between emotional comments that don't logically complete what you're trying to do and logical comments.
Well, and it's got to add to the content. Somebody said, oh, that's a good idea, and I also heard this, and if you look here and go here, you'll find some more information on that. That's a good comment because it adds to my content and extends it and gives that person somewhere to go. That kind of comment's really good. And you don't get a lot of those, as you probably know.
I do the same as you, so I
Yeah.
appreciate it. It kind of affirms that
Yeah.
that's a good place to be.
Can I ask one other question?
Sure.
I don't know, maybe I'm way more beginner than everyone in this class, but I don't even understand what you mean by clean content only, no superfluous tags or styles. Can you give examples? I don't
Okay.
completely understand.
Well, this is where we get a little geeky.
Okay, cool. Let's do it.
Okay, when you look at your HTML should be divided into two documents. The styles, the thing that tell the browser how to display your H1 tag and your paragraph tags and things, should be in a style sheet off on another document. Your HTML should look bare. H1 tag with just maybe a class or an ID on it, that's it. That tells the style sheet to style them. But it shouldn't have style and then font, but there shouldn't be any of those fonts and cell spacings, and none of that should be there. The font tag is a no-no. You should never have a font tag sitting anywhere. You should never have a style tag sitting anywhere. Code should be really clean. And it should be logically followed. In other words, H1 tag, H2 tag, back to an H1 tag, H2 tag, a couple H3 tags, H1 tag. That's a logical structure. And that should be in there. Stay away from tables unless you really are displaying data. Tables are only for data. A lot of people will structure their pages with tables. And tables add a whole nother, think of a table. To have a table, you have to have table, TR, TD, 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 TR, ending, TR. Look at all that. That really should be a div and a paragraph. And a div and a paragraph. And that's all it should be. That's a lot cleaner. So now, if you have data, then you should have a table. Where you have rows of data, lists of customers with different information. That's data. So tables should be for data.
Would tables slow load time?
It adds to it because there's more to go, but mostly, there are times when you need a small table when you have something that really needs to be blocked out into two columns, and that takes a lot of work to do with div tags and span tags and all that stuff, and that gets clunky. So at that point, you would use a table to show a product listing kind of thing. But basically, you should stay away from tables unless you're displaying data. Same thing with images. Images should be used for content. Your image should display like a picture of your product, or the photograph of the person you're talking about, or a photograph of the incident that you're talking about. All other pictures should be presented from your style sheet. They should come in as backgrounds from your style sheet, so that way Google can ignore them. So if you wanted a background image or something, a pretty flower display, that should be a background tag behind the div that's called from your style sheet. It shouldn't be an image sitting in the document, because it doesn't add to the document. It's just pretty. And it's not that you don't want it to be there. It's not that you can't have it there. It's just that it shouldn't be in the core HTML. So you shouldn't have these image tags floating around. Your image should have an alt tag describing what it is, and that description should relate to the content, so that Google can now index your image with your alt tag as a tag as part of your content.
So everyone understands what alt tags are, right?
Alt tag's the little tag inside the image. It's the image tag, and then there's a little alt, and then there's some text, and that alt tag describes it.
I'm more ignorant than that. I don't even know what HTML is, so I'm
Hypertext.
really in trouble.
Yeah, hypertext. It's the language. It's the language that tells the browser how to form everything.
Okay.
So if you're on the WordPress format, they have that you can see it visual or HTML.
Yeah,
Okay.
click the HTML and look at it, and then you probably will never want to look at it again. But
Does your website have to be in WordPress? I
No,
mean,
no.
mine is not. Is there
No,
some advantage
no.
to having it in WordPress? Is it necessary?
No.
Okay.
I use GoDaddy, and that's why I was confused too, because I don't mess with the HTML, and I know I need to, and I guess that's why I'm here. But no, yeah, I definitely don't. There's all kinds of different search.
They're called code generators.
Yeah.
WordPress is a code generator. Okay, you got to be very careful with code generators. WordPress is really popular because the people that develop WordPress have been very anal about making sure that WordPress generates really good HTML. That's why WordPress is so popular. It's really good. I mean, you can install WordPress and run it through the W3C validator, and it will pass.
Everybody know what that is?
No.
No.
Okay, W3C. Okay, W3C is the World Wide Web Consortium. They are the parent controlling company, organization, not a company. Parent controlling organization that describes everything and all the standards that have to do with the web. They're like the boss. They're the policeman over everything that we're doing on the web. Okay? They set the standards. So when we talk about web standards, we're talking about the W3C consortium. Okay? And they have a website, so you can go read about all the technical stuff. But they have one little place called a validator. And you can go there and type in the URL to your website and go check, and it will tell you all the good things and bad things about your website.
What's their URL?
How do you do that?
It's validator.w3c.org. But just go to w3c.org and you'll see a button that goes to the validator. W3C.
Oh,
A W and then a 3 and then a C.org.
We recommend everybody run their websites through this, so you know where you stand.
I actually paid GoDaddy to do something like that for me, and that's free. So
Yeah, it's free.
yeah, that's funny.
And if you use Firefox, do you use Firefox?
No.
You should.
What's that?
It's a browser.
Is that better than Google Chrome, do you think?
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying it's better,
Okay.
but it has a lot of tools.
Okay.
Okay, and one of the big tools you get is the web developer tools. It's an extension, and one of the menu items on the extension is validate HTML. And you just click on the menu and it goes to the validator and does all that for you. You don't even have to know the URL. Just install the web developer tools extension, go to their extensions after you put Firefox on your machine, go up to tools, add-ons, and then there's called web developer tools, and say install it, and then that'll give you a little menu across the top, and one of them will say tools. You click it and it'll say validate CSS, validate HTML, validate all kinds of stuff. You can validate. And it all goes to the w3c.org's tools.
And I can do that on my GoDaddy site.
It has nothing to do with GoDaddy.
It also helps you look at your page, and if you like somebody's web page, you can look at it and see how they built it with the divs and the tags and all the stuff that they used. It's really good.
Yeah.
So if you have a problem, does it tell you how to fix it?
It will, it will.
You
it will.
get that piece of paper there.
Yeah.
John
Call
asked the
them.
web
We'll do that.
developer free.
It'll throw all kinds of errors, and some of them won't make a whole lot of sense. What often happens is one error at the top of the page will trigger a cascading set of errors, all the way down, because you suddenly confused the validator because it can't figure out what in the hell you're trying to do, and then it'll throw a whole bunch of other errors. So a lot of them make sense, but some of them don't. And that's where, it can, somebody like me would have to look at it and say, oh, you can ignore those three. If you fix this one, those will all go away. Generally, it's a good idea to fix the first one and then run the test again. Fix the next one, run the test, and you'll discover that fixing one will suddenly make 10 go away because of the cascading effect. Okay? So that's the way to fix your website, so to speak, is to take it one at a time, redone the validator one at a time. Another good tool on Firefox is called Inspect, and it's part of the Firebug extension. So you want Firebug, and you turn on Firebug, and you click Inspect, and you take your browser over your page, and as you hit the objects, it will show you all the code related to that, and where it's at in your style sheet, and all kinds of geeky things that you want to know or don't want to know. I don't know.
I don't.
I don't either.
That's very clear.
I want to go back to your discussion, which seemed very interesting, about what clean content was, and you defined clean content as having to do with the way that the HTML code is structured.
Right.
So those of us who use code generators aren't going to even be looking at that, because that's why we're using code generators, because we don't know how to write HTML. And possibly, if you're like me, you don't want to know how to write HTML. So is that...
And that's why something like WordPress would be where you should be.
Right, so is that whole discussion about clean content, do we assume that's taken care of if we use a good code generator like WordPress?
Yes.
Alrighty then, moving along.
And you probably want to have some add-ons like SEO Presser would be a good one that would help you and give you some statistic as to whether you're putting your content together.
I don't know what you just said.
It's a WordPress add-on called SEO Presser. Am I saying that right? It actually looks at what you're doing and tells you whether you're, doing good things SEO-wise. It turns things red when you're doing something wrong and some green when you're doing it right, and it's very helpful for non-geeky people that want to do their content and make it SEO friendly.
What do you think about GoDaddy in terms of its ability to generate clean code? Because I am not ranked high.
The only way to know that is to take your website to the validator, and if you get a zillion errors, then you know you've got a problem.
You just had opinions about WordPress. I didn't know if you had one about GoDaddy.
No.
Don't know.
No. Typically, in my past experience, I know nothing about GoDaddy, but typically, in my past experience, code generators that are provided by the various hosting companies are generally terrible. That's been
what I
my
feel
past
like.
experience. Generally terrible. They generally do everything inside of tables.
Okay.
And one way to check that out is to go to look at your webpage and go up to View Sources and look at the HTML. And if you see a whole bunch of table tags,
Okay.
you're in trouble. You see table. Oh no!
Okay.
I'm in trouble.
That helps.
Code generators like that tend to use tables.
One thing I'll mention on the Firefox is get the page speed, because it will go slow if you don't have the page speed on there.
Okay.
Add page speed, that's going to be added.
One other comment, WordPress not only generates clean code, but it's got a lot of functionalities that basically plug in. You can
Oh, yeah,
use
no,
anything you want with
I was talking about the
WordPress.
SEO presser, yeah, there's a zillion little plugins.
Facebook.
But you've got to be careful with your plugins too, because some of those plugin writers
Yeah.
don't follow the rules very well. So after you add a plugin, validate your page again, see if they've really screwed you up. And if they have, then you need to go find another plugin that does that better.
One thing I might mention is that also have a plugin that will back up your website. I hope everyone here is backing up their websites, so if something happens.
Yeah, that is important, backing up. It's only important when you're, Yahoo, about 3 years ago, decided that they needed to upgrade all of their WordPress sites because they had left them in 2.x and it was already 3. Whatever at that time, and a lot of people were hacking the WordPress sites on Yahoo. So what they did was they shut everybody down, turned them off, and said, okay, you can start all over again, but you're going to have to put up a new site. If you hadn't been backing up, you just lost all your content.
Where's Yahoo now, from a business standpoint?
They're struggling.
Exactly.
Anyway, okay, we've covered actually a lot of this. We've talked about quality content, less extraneous stuff, anchor text links, you were asking about that. Real unique content, that's important. They really do check and see if your content is showing up elsewhere and match it out a little bit. So, make sure it's, and bounce rates is one of those quantities where you can actually see if people are actually staying very long at your website. So that's Google Analytics. Make sure you have that running. Yes?
If you have a standard footer, with a bunch of disclaimers and all that, does that count as duplicate content?
No.
You know, every page has exactly the same word.
Right. They don't ignore it. They probably won't even get down there.
Okay.
Google doesn't, and I've read this from many different sources, Google doesn't do your whole page. They start at the top and they go, when they find your content and a few other things, they go, I'm out of here. I found what I wanted. That's why it's kind of a waste of time to put stuff down there unless it's for people.
You said you could go to your website and click something at the top and find out stuff. How do you do that?
You got Firefox?
I do.
Okay. And in Firefox, you're going to do, you're going to view, I think it's tools,
View
view sources.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can you,
Firefox.
I don't know, and again, I
Go
don't know
ahead.
if I'm
Add-ons?
holding us back here, but I
You're
don't know
holding-
anything about anchor text links.
Oh, anchor text is the text that's highlighted with
I don't know
a
how to
blue
turn
with
it
an
on.
underline on it. You click it.
Oh, it's
The
like
text,
hyperlink?
the text that's underlined is called the anchor text.
Do this one.
The HTML underneath that starts with A
I don't know how to fix it.
and ends with /A, and it's called an anchor.
And that's when it takes you to some other page or like an
Hyperlink.
email? Okay,
That's what I
okay.
wanted all
Okay.
this time. So that will
Traditionally-
always be there?
Way back when the web first started and the guys who put it together, it was, they called it an anchor tag because it was used for two things. It was used for moving around the page, an anchor, and it was also used as hyperlinks. It's the same tag. Depending on whether it has an href on it with an actual URL or an href with a pound and a keyword that exists somewhere else on the page.
So those are good.
Those are
Have
good.
those.
And your anchor text should describe where it's going. In other words, click here is bad.
Okay. That's helpful.
Now, there is a ebook that I'm going to give you on SEO that you can go get. It's free. That goes through a lot of this and gives examples of that. Okay. Actually gives examples of anchor text and headings and structure, and it covers a lot of the little things that I can't really get into here and would bore some people. cite others.
Okay.
I'm trying to avoid it. Yes.
You're saying the anchor text should say what's happening, so,
Yeah, it should
on the
describe.
other one, what about buy now?
Terrible.
Buy, that's bad.
Yeah, terrible.
So it should be, click here to get your ebook, something more like
It
that.
should describe what the ebook, it should have the ebook's title.
On the link itself, the little button, whatever.
What is it? What is it I'm clicking?
Well, you've
But
got
that-
the information right above it.
It doesn't matter, Google's not gonna see that. Google is gonna look at the anchor text,
So the
and it's going to
actual text
index
should-
the anchor text.
It should say exactly what it's gonna do for you.
You get more power out of
Right.
the search engines when
Right.
you use them.
The other is, it's meaningless. Can you imagine going down a search page where it says, click here, buy now? Would you click that? Would you click that on a search?
If I
Engine?
were right above it, saw what it was.
It
I was
won't
clicking
be
on it.
above it though in the search engine, it'll be all by itself, naked.
Okay.
It's gonna be naked on their indexing page, buy now.
Because it's not relevant to the search.
Right.
Got it.
But you need to balance conversion versus search engine. Because you can get a very high SEO ranking from a link, but if it doesn't bring people to do something, a call to action, to get to the next page, it's useless. So sometimes buy now does work from a conversion standpoint, bad from SEO.
Okay, 'cause
Well, you
most
can do
of
both though, but you can do both.
Most
There's no
of the-
reason why you can't have a buy now image with the anchor text, with the alt text being the description of where it's going. So you can do both at the exact
Can it be
same time.
behind it? I mean, it's
No,
not
it's the anchor text of your
right
buy
there,
now
what you
image.
see on, right on the. image.
Google's gonna ignore the image and see the alt text.
Okay, because I don't really see that so much. I see more, like you say, more like buy now or click here. Or
Yeah, just
that
because
type
you
of-
see it doesn't make it good.
Okay, got it.
We're talking about what you should do, and then
Right.
you have to make your own compromises.
I got it. Thank you, thank you.
Well, we're talking about a kind of an idealistic world here, and then from there, you're going to have to, compromise with reality, as we all have to do. Okay, Panda. Talk about Panda. Panda
my site.
is called Panda because Mr. Panda was the guy who developed it. His last name was Panda.
How do you look like a panda?
I don't have his first name. I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Panda. So that's why it's called Panda, the Panda algorithm. Panda came out, when did Panda come out? A year and a half ago, or was it almost 2 years? I don't know why.
Started making an impact like summer last year, I think.
Yeah, it came out in February.
Yeah,
I think it was in
February is
February.
when
So it
I
was
had it
February,
really hitting.
yeah. It's
And
been
it
a
could have
while.
been 3 months before that if,
Figure out where it is someday.
I meant to go look that up, but I didn't. But anyway, when it came out, this is what this is what a Panda was originally supposed to do. This was the goal of Panda, right here. It was to detect scraper sites, to use quality raters, yes, real people, to produce some metrics. Those are things that we can check box off. They're like checkbox items. To determine what a quality website really looked like, and then turn it into a machine learning process, which is Google's forte, okay? And the rating questions that they gave these people had to do with these things: trustworthiness, credibility, quality, value of content. Those were the biggies that they gave these people in terms of saying, how do you rate this website? And then they took those ratings, looked at the website, and then tried to decide how they were going to duplicate what humans could do with a machine. So that's what Panda tried to do.
What's a scraper
What's
site?
a scraper site? That was my
It
question.
downloads the website behind the scene in code, and then redisplays it on some other website. It steals it.
So, wow.
That's easy to do. Technologically,
So
it's
that's how these
really-
people pretend that they're a website that looks almost exactly like PayPal or something else when they're trying to scam
that's
people.
one of that's scammers use it.
Oh my God.
SEO black hats use it. Yeah. Oh, it's technologically it's very easy because it's just code. I mean, it's just an HTML, and they just suck in the HTML, add a few, and then redisplay. Yeah, it's really easy, which is why,
Easy and sleazy.
And that's
Easy
why
and
there's
sleazy.
so much scamming going on out there.
yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay, let's work our way through the various parts of the algorithm. And the things that, and then the last slide, we're gonna hit the sort of the grand finale, what's relevant today and how they've changed it. They wanted to reduce all these questions to metrics, numbers, and what they called signals. Signals is just another checkbox that says this, they did this, they did that, that's called a signal. So when you hear the word signal, it simply means they met that metric. They checked that box, the rater checked the box on the worksheet that they have it. So that's a signal. I don't know why I had to come up with these special, neat little words, but they do. Geeky people like to do that. I think everybody likes to do that to some degree. Because you get into any business and guess what? They have their own little language, right? Okay. And they turn this into a machine learning process, and this is the key of what they wanted SEO people to do. They wanted them to look at user experience and what do users want to share and trust. That's what they wanted to force SEO people to do from going forward. Okay, but that was, notice there's nothing about all the other things that people talk about in SEO. So Google's got their own agenda here, and they're going to find a way. Google wants SEO people to be web strategists, to help people design a user experience with good content and structured content and minimal ads, with consistent quality of pages, content for people, not bots, interesting, humorous, fun, engaging. So this is what an SEO person should be doing from Google's point of view.
So Panda is a Google thing?
Yeah, it's a Google algorithm.
I see.
How does an algorithm determine if something's humorous and fun?
Good question. By how people behave around it. That's what Facebook does. How people click, how they share it, how many times they pass it on to somebody. That gives it value.
Interesting, humorous, fun, engaging. If people are sending it forward and sharing
it, coming back to it, So they're measuring these kinds of activities. It's like you can't tell, like if you were to pretend a minute that you couldn't tell if people were smiling or not, or happy or not, and all you did was watch their bodies. You still could kind of figure out what they liked by how many times they went over to this part of the store, and how many things they carried from that part of the store over to this part of the store, and how many things they actually purchased. You could then come up with metrics without ever looking at their face, without ever seeing whether they're smiling or sad or crying or whatever. You could kind of guess what they want. So that's what the machine's trying to do. Can't see your face, but they can tell what you're doing.
I'm doing it quite well, by the way.
Okay, more web strategists. User and usage metrics, time spent on relative to similar sites. Browsing versus bouncing. In other words, does your users land on your site and 2 seconds later bounce off? That's bad. They obviously clicked the link to go to your site and did not find what they thought they would find when they clicked that link. So there was a disconnect between your page title and your description and what they found when they land there. And then Google doesn't like that. That means you're scamming people from their point of view.
So your advertising is sort of something that you really don't
Bait and switch type thing or
Yeah.
whatever, yeah. So, or did you land there and spend a few minutes and then left? Well, that meant you might have read something. That's not too bad. Did you land there and click a few more links? Oh, that's really good. Because that means you really like the website. You found it valuable. See, so Google measures that. Click-through rate versus bounce rate. Really good. Traffic, diversity and quality. Where is it coming from? Where's that traffic coming from? Is it coming from one area on the web, which means somebody may be packing a bunch of links to your site, or is it coming evenly distributed throughout the web, which is more natural? Okay. Is it coming from relatively similar sites, which means other people that are doing what you're doing are talking about you and linking back to you? and that's good, versus, let's say you sell gardening tools, and somehow your link is coming from an air conditioning company. That would be bad, because that means you somehow got the air conditioning company to put a link on their site that had nothing to do with what they're doing. And that would be kind of what they call link farming. And that's bad. Okay, so there has to be some relationship between the links coming in on you and where they came from. So it looks like they are honest. Panda is very intense and takes time. That's because Google doesn't do it in real time. They process this data, they analyze it, and then they refresh the data. Matter of fact, they just did a refresh, I think it was last month, beginning of February or something. They do what are called data refreshes. So they process this data, they run through their algorithms, they're very intense, and then they put the new data up onto their site for the new searches. So there is going to be a delay between when you do something and when you see results. So don't expect to do what you do and next week get a result, unless you just happen to hit the refresh time right.
That could work both ways, for you and against you, couldn't it?
Oh, obviously, yeah. You could be doing something very bad and they don't ding you until a month later, right?
That's why when you see some issues happening, you've got to think back, okay, what did I do a month ago that's affecting me?
It's like to be able to remember what you did last month.
Yeah.
It'll come back, that's fine. So there is a delay. Google's previous algorithm was pretty real time. This one's not.
Well, I know my question. Whenever I do any kind of search on the web, it kind of remembers what I'm looking for. When they do a refresh, is that all like clean, or is it still personal to my interests?
Oh, no. The personal, that's a whole different data set.
Okay.
Exactly. No, they don't throw that away, because
Yeah, I was gonna say.
that's the core of what they want you to do, is to come to Google and to enjoy searching on Google and look at their advertisements. So that's what they're really all about. So no, we're talking about refreshes, we're talking about the algorithms of the search indexing and all that stuff.
That's why Google became a verb. I'm going to Google that.
Okay, let's talk about today with Panda. This is today, as of my research this weekend, and making sure, and I checked out all of this, and I read hundreds of pages into the late night to make sure that I got this really right, that I didn't miss anything. These are all the things I found, condensed into a little checklist. First of all, Panda is site-wide, not page-centric. Panda is about rating your entire website, not a given page. That's why the page rank is kind of fading back, because ranking pages is not as important as having a value proposition website, your whole website, okay? Above the fold is your new religion.
This is the one that just went into effect, right?
Right.
Yeah, that, because I know they've been talking about it on forums.
I've been talking about it for years. I am so happy. I'm relevant again.
You're the bomb, John.
God, took Google all these years to finally get with it. No, no, above the fold. What does that mean? That means when somebody opens your page, they do not see your whole page. They see a top part of it. And the line at the bottom of their window is called the fold. That's where the page folds. And they can't see below that right away. They have to scroll. So as far as Google is concerned, it does not count as a first impression. Above the fold is what counts as a first impression in terms of user experience. Now, you may have links there that send you down there, and you may have things going on, but basically, above the fold is what they first rate. So when they index your site, they try to stay above the fold. Theoretically, yes.
What are they doing with mobile devices?
That's a good question, because mobile devices display it differently, but fortunately, There's a problem there because not all mobile devices display pages the same way. For example, Safari on an iPhone will literally show an 8.5 by 11 page, whereas you can't see that normally in your PC browser. So yeah, that is a problem. But I think they are looking at the fold of a regular PC type page right now.
Just a quick question. Let's say you have a customer that doesn't want to get rid of their links or their stupid comments. What if you put it down at the very bottom of the page? If
That would
the
help.
bot never goes down there, you could put crap down there if you wanted to, right?
It would help, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they would be less likely to penalize
To
you
see it,
than
yeah.
to see it, yeah. Get it out of the way.
Right.
Yeah. So what they want above the fold is the real content. And it needs to be new and original type content. And they don't want to see very many ads. Remember that page that I showed you? The very, very beginning, the bad page? It had none of those things, right? The content was not even visible, and it was talking about Panda of all things, which is kind of ironic. It was talking about today's Panda, you know, and there it was, breaking all the rules. And it was ads all across the side of the page, and Google is really down on ads, lots of ads. I mean, a few is fine, but don't get carried away.
What about AdSense?
Yeah, that's
They're
how,
gonna
that is,
make the money on it, so do they like it?
that is a contradiction. I really don't honestly know how they handle that. Whether they let that slide, maybe they do, I don't know, but,
Because they're not gonna penalize you, because they're gonna make some money.
well, maybe they'll penalize you, but they're still gonna make some money, because you're buying it, right? I don't know.
Well, maybe they're gonna reward you,
Yeah, that could be.
or
Hey,
the other way.
they could do anything they want, right? Okay, empty content. Any kind of page just has a bunch of links on it, no real content. It's kind of link farm-ish. Boy, that's really bad.
Oh, so you're talking about like you have a page with links to other people. Okay.
Link page.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try to avoid that. Put your links inside of content that's relative and displays that, okay, you know, this is the content, and here's the link to that, and here's some more content, and here's the links to that, so it's all kind of ties together.
What about if you put your links in photographs? Does that count as content, the photographs?
The links count. Yeah, and Google can't see the photographs unless you have them in there and alt tags, on them. And then that's considered data.
Another way of like stripping out the links would be put it on a PDF, so that it's not on the page, but at least your users have access.
Yeah, one link, they download the PDF with all of your links. That's what you're passing out to them. Anyway, each page, one topic. That's what we talked about earlier, about making sure that the topic on the page was really self-consistent and on one type of subject. Auto-generated pages, be careful. They can generate stuff that you don't have control over and therefore can be not good for you. I doubt that GoDaddy is looking at Panda and redoing their whole code generation. I doubt that. So that may not be the best way to have a website.
What do you mean by that, auto-generated pages?
You go there and it's a WYSIWYG where you drag little pieces of your page, it's all gooey, and then a machine in the back takes what you did and generates the code to do your web page. You never actually had control over the code. It was all done by machine.
So isn't that the WordPress, et cetera, kinds of code generators?
Absolutely, but that's why WordPress has been so anal about making sure the code they generate is good code. Which is, if you're going to have a code generator, select your code generator.
What about something like iWeb or one of those kinds of things?
I don't know specifically iWeb, but iWeb is actually going away, so I wouldn't hang my hat on that. Apple's actually dropping that.
So you're saying that Panda doesn't like WordPress just because it's WordPress, just because it's auto-generated?
No, I'm giving you a general warning that
Oh.
auto-generated code is, I didn't say bad,
Oh, I see.
I said careful. I said be suspicious, make sure you know what you're getting, and at the same time, I think those people that have worked with WordPress would say, of those kinds of code generators, you're pretty safe with WordPress.
The key is validate your website, see what you're getting.
Yeah. And the last thing, and this is what they keep harping on, is user experience is king. What does your user experience when they come to your site? Okay. It's all about a really good website versus pandering to Google for page ranking. They want to get away from that. They want to stop that. They want to get back to getting you to look at your users, your customers. Get away from, and that's what SEO has been for the last 5 or 6 years. It's all been pandering to bots. Period.
So basically, if you approach the whole thing with the attitude, I'm trying to give the best content I can to my readers. I'm serving them, rather than I'm trying to get on page one so I make some fast bucks.
Yeah, well, as a first proposition, yes. As your first order proposition. And then after that, you say, okay, what else can I do to help these other things?
I need to get up on page one in order to survive, to make this thing, and to help more people. You can even look at it that way. 'Cause more
Absolutely.
people are gonna
But
find
your
the site.
first order of business is the user experience.
Help them.
Then,
As opposed
go-
to, like I said, I've been studying for a long time without doing, but just learning and studying. And you see so much black hat and you know, follow my system and you're gonna be on page one in 24 hours
and
guaranteed.
you and I have gone to the internet marketing meeting up down south, remember?
Yes,
We
yeah,
sat next to each other,
right.
and that's what you hear a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I don't go anymore. Oh, I mean, I was interested in hearing what people were doing, but I realized that I was in a foreign country as far as where people were going.
I call it the honeymoon period. A lot of these things will work.
Sure.
It will not stick.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Eventually it will crash, yeah.
It's the morality behind it, really. If you,
Amen.
if you're trying to create a business, a sustainable business that's gonna support you, and you're trying to do it in an ethical, honest way, which is the only way that lasts in the long term, then you're gonna be following these methods. If you're trying to just get the dollar, and that's your goal, fast, you're gonna try all these cheap methods, but they don't sustain, they don't last.
Well, for some people, they sustain long enough for them to sell the website to some other sucker, yeah.
Okay, so it really comes down to, I'll use the word morals, whatever, but the attitude behind your approach to the whole thing, to this
Yeah.
business.
Ultimately, yes, but some people, in all honesty and fairness, some people just, you know, they don't understand that per se, they just want to get there, and so they don't understand.
Well, one reason is because they got so much stuff teaching them how to do it that way.
No, I know.
I mean, 90%.
I just saw an ad drop in my mailbox the other day that says, you can be on the top of Google, no cost to you, easy, within 10 days, guaranteed.
Who believes that? Raise your
If I pay
hand.
for it, I can.
Yeah, if you buy an ad, yeah.
If I had,
What key
Can I
word?
ask another question? I do a lot of Flash animation and stuff. And what happens when you have, well, a lot of above the fold is a lot of Flash.
Yeah,
What happens to that?
it's not there. From
I
Google's point of
understand
view,
that.
it's not there.
I understand it's not there, but it just, everything that you put there, it can't go in and take a look at the code. How does that work? Can you explain that a little bit more?
My philosophy on that is Flash should be used for targeted things on a page.
Right.
Okay, that are considered user experience, but have to be supported by what else is on the page so that Google can see that. Okay, so if you took your page and you looked at it, used that web developer tools, and you said, you know, show me it bare, you know, without styles, without,
Right.
and looked at it, and writes all that off, you should look at that page and it should still make sense to you and still look good. And still be good, usable content from that point of view.
Could you, a lot of times what I'll do is if I don't want to use an H1 in my content, I'll hide it behind my header. So when they read it, they'll ignore the picture, the image, and they'll see the H1, and then it'll go down to the H2s and H3s.
As long as you don't use display none. Don't use display none, because then Google will see that and know that you're hiding.
Okay.
If anything, if you want to hide it, in the style sheet, move it completely off the page.
Right, okay,
Because Google
That way.
doesn't notice that.
okay.
Okay. Google still thinks it's here. And you've got to put a,
So I can't,
1,000 and you've moved away off into space.
so I can build kind of a boring site underneath my Flash content.
Yeah, just don't use display none,
Okay,
because that's a red flag for Google,
right, okay.
for like H1 tags and things like that.
What about video? YouTube videos, are they taking that into
Oh, yeah,
consideration?
they're good. They're good. Good stuff, good content. Videos are always good.
Do you have to actually transcribe it for it to be valid for SEO?
No, but it's a good idea. I see a lot of sites that have the video and then transcribe below that. It's a good idea.
John, I had heard that you want to be on Vimeo because they do HTML5 and it's good for mobile. Do you know anything about that?
I've heard the same thing, but I haven't researched
You want
it.
to be on what?
Vimeo?
Vimeo is another, like YouTube, they do video consolidation and publishing.
Yeah.
Vimeo.
It's Vimeo, is that,
Never
I spelled that
even
right?
heard of it. Does it show that?
They've been around a long time, just like YouTube, they just haven't gotten the press as much.
It's more like artists are there.
Yeah. Okay, here's some quick tips. Link no notes. We're going to talk about titles and description, keywords, image tips, content tips. Titles, descriptions. Unique for your website. Make sure they contain your keywords. Description of actual content. Actually describe the content. It's like in the scientific world called an abstract. You're used to doing that sort of thing. Anyway, it basically is a short version of the content they're going to read. So if somebody reads it, they will be excited about going to your site. And when they get there, they won't be disappointed. So it really has to be really connect. When you click it and they read it, when they land there, they go, oh yeah, that's what I wanted.
What if it's about your company? What do you, what's it?
There's nothing wrong with that. It's just the description should be clear that it's about your company. So if somebody clicks it, they're not, it shouldn't have to do with some other product page and then they land on your company description. It should connect to that page directly. Keyword tips. Keywords consist of word phrases that describe your website. You need to stick to simple words and phrases. Things that people would type into Google. Okay? Think of yourself as a person searching. What kind of words would I use? And we're going to get to the very key of this down at the bottom, and that's called research. So that's really the important part. But this up here is kind of giving you why you're researching. Misspellings. Also consider misspellings. If you have something that everybody always misspells, then that should be a keyword too.
Like misspellings?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but that's because like misspelling. Yes.
He did that for
They
emphasis.
didn't catch me on that. They didn't put a red line under and warn me. I depend on machines to keep me honest. Think of words that are unique to your business. And the last thing is research. There is a whole bunch of tools out there for keyword research, where you can actually do analysis on whether keywords are popular, whether people are actually typing them in or using them. And Google has tools. Their AdSense, they have part of their AdSense products. They have tools that are free. You don't have to buy an ad to use them. And there are. I did Keyword research, I typed in Google, and I got pages of sites that do that. So there's a lot of opportunities out there for keyword research besides Google. Some of them are paid, some of them are not. So do your keyword research. That really boils down to what people are really doing. And also there'll be suggestions for you of new keywords that are like yours that people are actually using, and that's good too. It'll kind of open up the possibilities for you. To image or not to image? We touched on this earlier, I just want to re-emphasize it. Images should have a purpose beyond style if they're going to be in the main content. If they're not, they should be part of your style sheet so that Google doesn't see them. Image should relate to content as data. It should be a picture of the person you're talking about, or the place you're talking about, or the event you're talking about. Google should be able to relate your photograph with your content in terms of the alt tag, and then a user looking at it should go, ah, that's a picture of the tornado, and here is the content talking about the tornado. That would be data. Here's a picture of that person, and this is an article about that person. So, and they should have a descriptive alt tag text that actually has the same kind of content as the content, so they relate.
What's an alt tag?
It's a tag within the image tag, and if you're using something like WordPress, you can add a tag to your images when you upload them. In their media, part of their media, you can add a description, and that description will become your alt tag when WordPress puts it in there for you.
Also for disabled people, if they can't read the content, they click on the alt tag description of the picture, and it tells them what that description
Right,
is.
we'll describe it, yeah. Yeah, there's a whole nother thing we can do about usability and meeting the federal government's usability guidelines, and there's a whole thing. If you want to do web pages for anything related to government, you have to meet these criteria. That's a whole nother topic. But that's a good point, very good point. Content structure, we talked about this already. I just wanted to go over and really make sure it's clear. Heading tags, provide guides to indexing your site, and there's the whole idea about H1, H2 tags. And headings should be descriptive as possible. Headings should also try to contain some of your keywords. So that's what SEO Presser and WordPress does, is it relates your keywords to your alt tags, your H1, H2 tags, to see if you're using your keywords within your headings. That's good. Now be careful, you can get kind of clumsy and it starts looking unreadable if you go too far on that. I've seen people write stuff that no longer is readable by human beings because they're following all these rules blindly. So that can kind of bite you, so be careful. Okay, we're going to wrap up with expectations. And God, we have a lot to go and haven't gone very far. We'll have to speed up a little bit. Okay, SEO, there are no guarantees. Basically, it's all about a process of doing the things that we have already discussed, that slow process that you work on. You go back and you see what works for your site and your business, and you do a little more of it. You tweak it. You have to look at your budget, and it's something. It's best to do a little bit all the time than a whole bunch and then stop. So if you have to gauge yourself. You have to say, okay, what can I really do? And sustain. That's better. Don't think that you have to do all of this stuff. It's better that you do a third of this stuff and keep doing it. You'll have a long-term rewards in terms of getting results that will sustain you, and then if you get sick for a couple of weeks, it won't go to hell in the handbasket on you because you've built a good foundation. So keep that in mind. It looks like this huge mass of stuff you have to do. Pick some things that make sense to you and keep working on it. Okay? This is on your page here, on your thing, you can kind of read that. And we've kind of covered a lot of that stuff already because of questions. And we've actually talked a little about snake oil SEO. And we'll get over here to the red flags. That's what's important. People that guarantee rankings, that's a red flag. There's no guarantees. That's the thing you got to realize. There are no guarantees, so if they're guaranteeing something, something's wrong. Unless you're spending a lot of money and they're buying your place in Google. That happens too. That can happen. So, and you're going to find that you probably could buy it yourself a lot cheaper. Okay? Thousands of search engines. There aren't thousands of search engines. So that phrase in and of itself is a red flag, because there isn't thousands of search engines. There's only about 3 or 4 that are of any significance. Guaranteed traffic, same problem. Some of those SEO outfits will have bots that come and hit your site to make it look like you're getting traffic. And the minute you stop paying them, it all disappears. So be careful. Link farms, we've been talking about that idea all along. Too many links on a page. That's what link farms are. Places where they just flood it with links. Proprietary techniques. If they say they have proprietary techniques, something's wrong, because there are no proprietary techniques. It's all about understanding Google, and it's out there on the web. Huge discussions of what Google does. The issue isn't not knowing what to do. It's the issue is having the time to do it all. And that's where you may hire somebody who will help keep you on track and keep you on target and keep it going while you're tending to other business. Okay? And same thing with insider info and algorithms. It's just not, I mean, the only thing I can say about that is that there are people that spend a lot of time looking at this so they have a good handle on it. And that's your SEO expert. That's not proprietary, it's not insider, it's just being well-versed. Versus maybe you don't want to be well-versed. It's like going to a mechanic to fix your car. It's not that you couldn't do it, it's just that you don't want to do it. You don't want to crawl into the car and change the oil. It's not hard, it's greasy, messy, dirty, and you don't want to do it.
You're right.
So you hire somebody else to do it.
No,
But there's nothing proprietary about it. There's nothing fancy about it. It's just you don't want to do it. You don't have time to do it. Contracts and ownership. Some SEO companies will have you sign contracts that then, and I've read of this, who actually you turn your content over to them in the contract. So read those contracts. Be careful. And hard sell. I mean, we all get the email. That almost. There's another issue. These are like advanced topics. We've already covered some of these. We've covered most everything. But there's one more thing I wanted to mention on this SEO scams. There's another kind of scam that I don't know is necessarily intentional, but you need to be cautious of it. And that is some very legitimate SEO companies will, as part of their package that they give to you, will say, okay, we need to completely rebuild your website. Okay? You've heard that. That may be true. But you need to really find out why they're doing it. Because sometimes it's only to pad the bill. And sometimes it's legitimate. So be careful of that. It's very similar to what happened to my son with his car this last week. He went to go smog his car and his little check engine light went on, so he took it to the dealer because he'd been going to the dealer to have them work on it. It was a Volkswagen dealer in Escondido. Who would that be? and they discovered, they did a tune-up on it, and things that he had asked them to do so that and get rid of the check engine light. And somewhere in that process, they discovered they had no compression in one of the cylinders. Not no compression, very low compression. So guess what they told him? You need a new engine to the tune of $5,000 to $6,000. And so my son calls me and goes, Dad, what's going on here? This thing only barely has 100,000 miles on it. And it needs a new engine? And he'd had the car from the beginning, and he'd been religious about changing the oil, which I had pounded into his head over the years, ever since he was a little boy. But you gotta change the oil all the time. Twice as much as they even mention. Oil is good, grease is good. Clean oil and grease is good. That'll keep your engine good. So, and he did that. So this shouldn't have happened, really. So I said, okay, I have a friend who does Volkswagens and Mercedes and stuff. We'll take it over to him. Took it over to him. He looks at it and says, no, you just have some bad valves. To the tune of $1,500. So that is a kind of a scam. Okay? Their solution was brand new engine. Now, if you think it from their point of view, it's very safe. If they give you a brand new engine, you're not going to be complaining about anything related to your engine for a while, right? Whereas if they just fix your problem, then something else might break, and then you'll be in saying, I just paid for my engine to get fixed and it broke again. You know, so from their point of view, it's a total solution. But from your point of view as a customer, it's an overly expensive solution unless you just have a lot of money. So be careful. That's kind of the analogy that you would look at between fixing your engine and just throwing it out and buying a brand new engine when you really didn't need it. So that's kind of an example. And it happens everywhere, not just in websites. Okay? Well, wow. That took a lot of time to get through that.
That's a lot. We have a lot of questions.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's very good. We had some really great questions, and we had a lot of good discussion. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Very, very good.
Here's to you guys for great questions.